Good Monday morning. Welcome to the Weather Desk. I'm Meteorologist Craig Moeller, and I've got your top weather headlines from around the country, around the world. In this case, we're going to turn our attention to Melissa down in the tropics in Jamaica. We do this Weather Desk each and every weekday morning around 9 o'clock. There's so much to get to today. Our headlines include, of course, Hurricane Melissa. It is set to hit Jamaica, eastern Cuba after that, and then taking aim on the Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas. So we're going to get into all of that. We'll take a deep dive into that in just a moment here. As we take a look at a few of the other headlines, we had some rough weather over the weekend. Severe weather. We've got a roundup. We're going to talk about storms down in southern Mississippi near Biloxi. There were some big storms back in Washington State and flooding in Florida, so a lot to get to, and we'll break all that down for you coming up. And then as we look ahead, we have a weather impact alert for Hampton Roads tomorrow. I think we could see some tidal flooding. That's going to be a concern with wind and rain. I'll break down those threats to the Hampton Roads area in the Mid-Atlantic, and I've got the forecast for the week ahead. So plenty to talk about this morning. And again, our focus is going to be on Melissa. Now we take a look at this, and let's do just a little bit of setup here. We are making our way through the hurricane season. We're just about done with October, less than a week left of October. And then we get into November. By the end of November, we typically put the hurricane season to bed in the Atlantic. Melissa is the fifth hurricane of the season, the 13th named storm, but the fifth hurricane. And you take a look at this, okay, we've only had 5 hurricanes, which seems kind of odd, right? We typically get more than that. But you look at this, each one of the hurricanes, Aaron, Gabrielle, Umberto, and now Melissa, these 4 were all major hurricanes, with Melissa, Umberto, and Aaron all being Cat 5s. Gabrielle maxed out at a Cat 4, and then Imelda was weaker, just a Cat 2. But just very interesting, I think, that, we have 13 named storms so far during the Atlantic season. And once they became hurricanes, it seemed like all of them really ramped up. Of course, Imelda was the exception there. Now, the worst hurricane on record to hit Jamaica, and this just gives a little bit of context to what I think Jamaica is going to be dealing with here in the next 24 hours to 36 hours. Okay, going back, they don't have on record officially a landfall with a Cat 5 system. Hurricane Gilbert hit as a Category 4 hurricane back in September. It was September 12th of 1988. That was a Cat 4. Now, Gilbert, when it made landfall, did a lot of damage, about 100,000 homes heavily damaged, and there were about 500,000 Jamaicans that were displaced or homeless after that, and then they had to rebuild. There were different accounts of how many fatalities in Jamaica alone. There were hundreds of fatalities throughout the entire span of Gilbert's impacts in the Caribbean and as it moved along. But in Jamaica itself, accounts anywhere from 45 up to about 49 or 50 deaths. And there were long-term disruption of services and outages, and the banana crop was destroyed, completely destroyed, as Gilbert moved from east to west across Jamaica. So that one tracked right on through. This is a little different, but this one potentially could be the hardest to ever hit Jamaica. So you see the warnings in place here for Jamaica, and eastern Cuba also under hurricane warning. The areas in red, Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas here, under hurricane watch. And then you've got tropical storm warnings out for Haiti. So they've already had some deaths on Hispaniola. Okay, Dominican Republic and Haiti here. Hispaniola, they've had some deaths from some of the flooding out ahead of this, just heavy rain bands, outer bands kind of reaching that area. Now we have to deal with not only the extremely heavy rainfall that could be measured in feet as opposed to inches. We're looking at heavy rain here and incredibly destructive winds as a Category 5 potential at landfall. And then it's going to weaken a little bit, but we should still have a major hurricane impacting eastern Cuba, whether it's a Cat 4 or Cat 3 at landfall. We'll see. After that, it should be a little bit weaker, but still a heavy hit potentially to the southern Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. You take a look at the satellite images here. It has been just kind of drifting to the west at about 3 miles per hour or so over the last couple of updates from the Hurricane Center. I just put this on a little earlier this morning just to show how far south of Jamaica it is, and right now it's still drifting to the west. Now, originally the thinking was that it was maybe going to follow this track and then kind of come out here and maybe come up, you know, just over the westernmost parts of the area in Jamaica, or maybe a little farther west, but that was going to leave Jamaica kind of in the right front quadrant as it makes the turn. The thinking more recently from the Hurricane Center is that this system is going to make a turn and come up right in here, maybe around Black River or Bull Savannah. So you can see some of the smaller cities and towns that are in line, anywhere from Cambridge and Montego Bay over to Falmouth and Discovery Bay, Albertown, Mandeville. Some of these areas where this system could push a lot of water up. Coastal flooding, destructive winds, obviously, surge, incredible surge with this as it would come in this way and then push across the country there. So we're going to be watching all of this very, very carefully. I'll color enhance this. You can see some of these heavy areas of rain that have kind of blossomed and then move up off to the north. We've seen some of that. Some of the heavier stuff earlier was making its way up towards Hispaniola. Right now, we've got this center here with the diameter, and I measured this a little bit earlier, just the diameter of the eye. It was around 15 miles. So as we zoom in, as a matter of fact, let's take this full because I'm going to step over and I may have to adjust the measurement on this just a little bit here. As we take a look, I want to give you the very latest. So rather than just show you what I had done earlier, I want to take this live, and what we can see with the dimensions on this right now as we measure it this way, it's still about 15 miles or so, east to west and from north to south, about the same. Very, very well organized, kind of perfectly concentric as it's moving along. And this is just a very, very powerful system. And we're going to be watching this and continuing to monitor and just hope and pray that the folks here in Jamaica are spared in some way, shape, or form. It does look very much like this is going to impact Jamaica directly based on all of the guidance. Now, we're taking a look at this, and I'm going to show you the latest track, and then we're going to show you a package here from down there as they are preparing for it. But this is what the Hurricane Center has as of 8 o'clock. Again, the turn to the north, and then eventually back across the northeast, cutting through that section of Jamaica I was just talking about, making a run across the strait here, likely a second landfall, and we're going to have to see exactly how this goes. May weaken a little bit, but likely a landfall again as a Cat 4 in Cuba, weakening over land a little bit, and then eventually exiting off to the northeast, impacting, again, Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, and then accelerating off and potentially having some impacts even around Bermuda. So we're going to need to watch all of this. Tremendous concern, obviously. We are talking about a Cat 5 with winds of 160 miles per hour, maximum sustained, gusts to 195, almost 200 mile per hour wind gusts. It's incredible. This system is heading now towards Jamaica. I will show you the models of spaghetti plots. Everything is taking it there. We could take a look at some new satellite images, and you can see how the storm system looks from above, and you see some of the lightning strikes there detected. That's some of those flashes you see. And typically with a lot of tropical systems, you don't get a lot of lightning in the actual center of the system, but there is so much going on right now in it. We're still seeing some lightning strikes, and you'll notice with some of the outer bands, you get some lightning strikes with some of the deep convection there. Really a super cool satellite image there and loop that I love to be able to show you. So we wanted to give you that. All right, the system has been a very slow mover, and it's caused deadly flooding in both Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And again, as I mentioned, it is going to make landfall. That is the expectation in Jamaica tomorrow. ABC's Sophie Flay has a closer look at the impacts the island's already feeling.
This morning, Hurricane Melissa closing in on Jamaica. A storm forecasters warn could be catastrophic. Heavy rain already lashing the island. Up to 40 inches expected in some areas, which could trigger landslides. The coast is bracing for a storm surge of up to 13 feet.
These rocks were brought in from another part of Jamaica to stop the Caribbean Sea from blocking out the only road that leads to the airport. Now, the concern is now, as Melissa rolls its way in, these waves will get too tall for these rocks washing out that only road.
Melissa, on track for a direct hit, could become the most powerful hurricane on record in Jamaica.
You're asked to evacuate now!
People scrambling to evacuate, while others try to stock up on essentials.
I was hoping to get some bread, but the shelves are empty.
Melissa has already claimed multiple lives in the Caribbean, including 3 in Haiti, where the storm flooded streets and destroyed homes. It also left a trail of destruction across the Dominican Republic, forcing crews to evacuate pets from these flooded homes. In Florida, volunteers have been preparing aid boxes containing food and other basic necessities to help families across the Caribbean.
The impact is going to be so difficult with persons having to be without the necessary essential items. These families' necessity kits will at least help them get through a few days.
Hurricane Melissa is expected to make landfall in Jamaica early tomorrow before heading towards Cuba. Sophie Flay, ABC News, New York.
All right, Sophie, and one more look at that forecast track again as it moves off eventually to the north and then back to the northeast. Now, how confident are we in this track, this forecast? Take a look at one of the spaghetti plots here. This is all the different hurricane models, and they are all very much in agreement. So high confidence here that we're going to see this turn and then eventually heading up towards Cuba, whether it moves over Santiago de Cuba or whether it stays a little farther to the west, we'll have to see. But it's very likely that this system will track right through this area and then cut up across Cuba. After that, there's question as to whether or not it impacts Bermuda. But I wanted to show you, this is the ensemble spaghetti plot where we take a bunch of little different conditions and just set little variables and try to change it up and see, and you can see how all of the models are just overwhelmingly, all these runs in the ensemble all do pretty much the same thing, and they do carry it off in the direction of Bermuda. So we're going to be watching that area farther down the road. It would be a weakened system at that point. This is going to be a difficult situation. Again, not only are we talking about tremendous rains, but those powerful winds impacting Jamaica through the day tomorrow. Hurricane force winds, not just tropical storm force, but hurricane winds coming over the island and then continuing until we get into the late day Tuesday. The tropical storm force winds pulling away by Tuesday night and into early Wednesday. Now, the Euro and the GFS, again, you can see both models bringing it into the same area, very much in agreement, and both of them very close, bringing it into eastern Cuba, then racing it through that area and then eventually up towards Bermuda. There's Bermuda right there. So you can see how the Euro and the GFS, the Euro in red, the GFS in yellow, basically bring it, both of them, very close to Bermuda. So a lot to watch here over the coming days. All of it is well to the east of our area and along most of the eastern U.S. So Florida, the southeast U.S. and mid-Atlantic in fine shape as far as Melissa goes with that forecast track. But folks in Jamaica, obviously Cuba, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, and Bermuda need to watch this carefully. We'll turn our attention over just quickly to show you in the eastern Pacific. We have one system, Sonia, and this one is moving off to the west, not a threat. So we're not going to worry too much about that. Remember, we have just a little bit more of the hurricane season left. We are right here at the end of October, October 27th. So not too much left, but obviously with Melissa being just a case in point, you can still get these late season storms that fire up and can be tremendously damaging and devastating to areas. So we're going to continue to watch, and you know who's always keeping a close eye of things. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. He hosts Hurricane Hub Live, weeknights at 8 o'clock when Tim is off and away. We have Hunter Force and Evan Stewart keeping an eye to things. So every single night through the hurricane season, which extends through the end of November, we will be doing Hurricane Hub Live right here on 13 News Now Plus. That's at 8 o'clock. Again, it's a deeper dive, a closer look at everything happening in the tropics. And we touch on all of that right here from the weather desk as well. All right, we're going to take a short break. After that, the severe weather wrap up over the weekend and a weather impact alert for Hampton Roads. I'll break down the threat for tidal flooding, some wind and rain in my forecast. That's coming up. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. Over the weekend, severe weather slammed parts of the United States, including areas down along the Gulf Coast, not far from Biloxi. We have a look at the damage, and we want to get into that. Southern Mississippi, they're cleaning up. Multiple tornadoes touched down here. Let's take a look at the damage from Gautier, which is about 30 minutes east of Biloxi on the coast there. The mayor says nearly a dozen homes have been damaged, as well as a couple of apartment complexes and a restaurant. The Red Cross is helping those who have been displaced. Fortunately, no injuries have been reported. Now we're going to turn our attention up to Washington State. You can see again the loop here over the weekend, Sunday into Monday. Strong storms left 150,000 people without power in Seattle. We have Balderas. It has a closer look. Christian Balderas has a closer look at the damage.
In Bonnie Lake.
And he couldn't get anywhere. Everything was closed off. Logs across the road.
This is the only bit of power at Douglas Glugover's home.
I thought we were going to be staying in a hotel for a few days.
Towering trees came crashing down throughout the neighborhood, snapping power lines.
We just heard the tree crack, and then the power line just went like...
There's about 6 power lines down over there.
And in North Seattle,
I could hear like a crack, right? And then the power went out.
it was the same story for Trish Alexander.
It's one tree. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
She's the only one on her block that lost power. A massive tree uprooted the sidewalk and fell on her and her neighbor's car. For her, cleanup is slow moving.
And they don't know when they're going to come?
Nope.
Okay.
They have like primary down.
Right.
Puget Sound Energy said 150,000 people were without power Sunday morning. Their big focus was to first assess the damage.
The biggest issue we're seeing is down in the Thurston and Pierce County areas, and even some of that south or southeast Keene and the foothills.
With assessment mostly done, PSC says a restoration should happen more quickly.
Like, yeah, they're super busy. I'm like 691 outages. Right.
And so now, for the thousands still without power,
But I'm still hoping to have power by the end of the day.
it's simply a waiting game.
And I'm hoping these guys fix it today. So if not, cold showers and we'll deal with it.
All right, so we're going to go from the extreme northwestern U.S. all the way to the extreme southeastern U.S. and Florida. And I want to take a look at some of the flooding from Titusville. This is about an hour east of Orlando. Cars got stuck in floodwaters and rescue crews had to use boats to reach victims. This intense flooding even caused some of the roads to buckle. It's been a lot going on across the country. All right, we're going to take a look now at our potential for tidal flooding here in Hampton Roads. We have tomorrow a weather impact alert from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. as we do have wet, windy conditions that will develop and that potential for tidal flooding. It's really set for the afternoon high tide, which will take place between 2 and 3 o'clock for much of the area, 3 to 3:30 for some areas a little farther to the west. But this is a general time range and then a little bit of buildup before and after. That's why we've got that time. Some folks may need to move their cars. You might need to think about rerouting some travel if you normally have to drive through some neighborhoods or some areas that have roads that are prone to flooding. Now, you'll notice at Sewell's Point, the high tide around 3 o'clock, minor tidal flooding. If that were the case, we deal with this from time to time. We are a coastal community, and we do have some minor tidal flooding. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but other areas like the Lynnhaven Inlet could see moderate tidal flooding. This really starts to impact more homes and potentially property and more roads that can be impacted as well. So we're going to be watching for those water levels to increase at high tide around 2 o'clock at the Lynnhaven Inlet. Yorktown and Duck Pier down along the Outer Banks, both those areas, Middle Peninsula and or I should say the peninsula around Yorktown and the Middle Peninsula, and then back over towards the Outer Banks, minor tidal flooding for the most part. But there are a handful of other areas, including the James River up at Jamestown and the Scotland Ferry. We could see moderate tidal flooding there. The Pagan River at Smithfield, moderate tidal flooding in Nassawadox Creek. We could see some more moderate flooding. So this is going to be the concern. We've got an area of low pressure that's developing down here. That's going to move along and eventually produce the wind, the rain, and bring up those tide levels. All right, as we take a look, I want to show you what's happening. Some snow back over some of the higher elevations back across the northern Rockies. We've got rain back across the Dakotas down into Nebraska. Really, the severe weather outlook today pretty low, but there's one part of the country that's seeing severe weather right now. So even though you take a look at the outlook for the entire country, you don't really see much highlighted. You take a look in Florida here near the Panhandle. We've got some flood advisories, and then we've got the severe weather warning with what was possible tornadoes. You see this little hook right here. Take a look at this little appendage. That, to me, would indicate maybe a water spout or maybe just an offshore tornado there, at least a hook there. So they have a thunderstorm warning with possible tornado. And earlier, there was a little kind of hook there that we were watching moving across this area north of East Point. So some rough weather down along the Florida Panhandle. And you can see this is set to run another 15 minutes or so, 15 to 20 minutes. That's a look at what's happening right there. And again, it's always interesting when you see some of these little curls on the southwest side. Pretty good indication of rotation, possible tornado, or at least a water spout there if it's offshore. All right, as I mentioned, not much severe weather threat outlooked by the Storm Prediction Center, but we do have the flood potential there. And again, just that level 1 threat for severe weather. I'd say they're seeing it right now, though, down that way. You see how it kind of plays out. Now, this area of low pressure is going to move up along the coast, and as it passes by here, our winds are going to increase from the northeast tomorrow. We could see some gusts here in the mid-Atlantic, 35 to 40 miles per hour. That in combination, again, with a prolonged wind, we're going to see the northeast winds. They're already going right now, but they're going to increase tomorrow. That's going to push water into the bay. Those higher gusts, again, driving the water levels up. So we do have that potential for minor to moderate tidal flooding. We'll continue to watch some more rain working across the central U.S. This round of wet weather coming in later for us as we go into Thursday. Once that clears, things improve significantly for Halloween. Weed pollen still low. Aside from that, allergies really not an issue. We do have mostly cloudy skies, and we've been seeing that across the region, checking in with the Thompson Creek Window Company sky views. Right now, northeast winds have been blowing 10 to 20 miles per hour. We do have small craft advisories up for the bay and the ocean. Those will go to gale warnings tomorrow as the winds increase. We'll see those tide levels coming up as well. All right, the chances for rain, again, increasing significantly. A slight chance today, but really going up tomorrow. The rain may be a little heavy at times. We're going to be watching for all of that. So just know that while it's not looking too bad for most of today, as we go through the overnight and into tomorrow, here comes the rain. You can see it developing and becoming more widespread. All of this contributing to our weather impact alert for tomorrow. I think those water levels up, the rain coming down, and the winds going to make for a pretty nasty day. 1 to 2 inches across the region generally expected through tomorrow. That said through Monday a.m., but that should run through Tuesday p.m. and into Wednesday morning. As we look at the 7-day forecast, we're going to see the breezy conditions coming up for your Tuesday, windy at times, windy on Wednesday, and still breezy Thursday into Friday. But here's the thing. For Halloween here in the Mid-Atlantic, it's looking good, mostly sunny. So good news for the trick-or-treaters, mainly clear, temperatures in the 50s. A good night for your Halloween activities, looking good through the weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to have more special programming on Melissa at 13 News Now Plus.